In this video, I'm going to talk about why we have blockages and how we can remove these blockages. Even in this moment right now, I feel blockages. And these blockages are detrimental and pervade every aspect of your life. How you view and perceive the world, how you speak, who you are friends with, the type of people you run into, the type of information you run into. Our blockages are an ever-pervasive lens that informs our entire worldview, including addictions, and especially addictions. Unconsciously, we know these blockages exist because we're not okay. We're always not okay. I forget the philosopher's name, but I don't think it was Thomas Paine. Maybe it was John Locke. Maybe it was neither. But nevertheless, the quote is, "Most of man's problems stem from the inability to sit alone by himself in a room." There's a deeper meaning to this quote, such that when we're doing nothing, we're face to face with our blockages. Our blockages are first and foremost an extremely physical experience. We are physically uncomfortable. We are physically not okay. These blockages create content, more so useless content, more so chattering of the mind that does not stop. It's incessant. So therefore, if we get rid of our blockages, we create space for a quiet mind in which we are able to perceive directly and more objectively, and therefore much more enjoyably. Life has so much more depth, dimension, and color when it is not informed by our blockages. Now, here's the difficulty. Just how many blockages do we have? 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000? Are my blockages just my blockages? Or am I carrying the burden of other people's blockages, including my families, my communities, perhaps even the whole world, given that we are all connected? Am I not only supposed to take responsibility for my own blockages, but for other people's blockages as well? And if it's an endless number or an endless number of layer of blockages, what's the point of removing even one of those blockages if they're just going to keep coming up day by day? Why should I remove these blockages? Let alone, how do I remove these blockages, right? I can tell you from personal experience, having removed my blockages for 9 years, and not consecutively, I would say consecutively for maybe almost 5 years. Probably 60% of my anxiety has gone away, and that's because I was an extremely anxious person. 5 years of consistent work, of removing my blockages has led to 60% of my anxiety dissipating. Yes, I'm 40% anxious, I would say. But 5 years of work to get rid of 60% of anxiety, that's a pretty good ROI. So it does get better. It gets better. It's not perfect. It's probably never going to be perfect. But our intention should be set to how close to perfect should we get. Okay? So it's not all bad news. However, it's going to require a lot of work. Now, this channel is dedicated to addiction and spirituality. In my first set of videos, I will probably be talking more about addiction. I would like to talk more about addiction, but you cannot discuss addiction without talking about spirituality. Even the science says that people who suffer from addiction suffer or lack a spiritual compass. There is an aspect of atheism that goes into the addictive decision-making process. Now, that's not saying it's a choice, but it is a decision. One you are either semi-conscious or completely unconscious of. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, you are at least semi-conscious, perhaps even on the brink of becoming fully conscious. So, how do you remove your blockages? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. There are a number of ways to remove your blockages. Running, exercise, eating the diet that is correct for you. And the diet that is correct for you, you're going to have to experiment. I don't want to give advice, but if you find yourself with extreme unorthodox choices and you're feeling really good because of it, stick with it, in spite of what judgment you receive on behalf of others. And more importantly, I'm not saying this strictly, but try not to tell anybody or share with anybody what you're eating unless they specifically ask, and they have to be asking from a good place in order to help themselves. Otherwise, try to keep quiet about it. But diet is extremely important and integral to the recovery process. So, running, lifting weights, yoga, stretching, eating well. My go-to is probably meditation. Psychedelics, but psychedelics are a get in and get out kind of context or practice. Psychedelics are there to teach you how to meditate. Psychedelics can actually be the greatest meditation teacher, or one of the greatest. Psychedelics are there to give you hope, and how to facilitate that hope and that positivity and that light via meditation. There's chanting, there is prayer, and quite possibly the greatest form of prayer is one of forgiveness. Many people do not know this, but 2/3 of the work that Jesus Christ did, and I'm not trying to get religious here, I'm just talking about this from a strictly historical standpoint, is that 2/3 of the work that Jesus did was forgiveness. Jesus was actually a yogi, and it is mentioned in the chapter of Luke 7 times that Jesus was a meditator. And he was actually known to go and fuck off in the woods somewhere and sit under a tree and meditate, simultaneously asking for forgiveness on behalf of himself, on behalf of others. So Jesus was reconciling conflict within communities. The other 1/3 of his work was ministry. Now that's a different story, but still relevant to prayer. Prayer, especially in the context of forgiveness, such as ho'oponopono, which is a set of 4 statements. I'm really sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Coupled with meditation, specifically not transcendental, but vipassana. Vipassana is the best way to remove blockages. It is probably the most powerful medicine there is, not just for addiction, but for disease in general. Blockages do not just create addiction, they create disease. If you look at this word disease, dis-ease, you're not at ease because you have blockages. Enlightenment occurs through the body, does not occur through getting lost in the whirlpool of mind, of not hitching onto a thought and being dragged out by it. Enlightenment is a very physical process. It's a very physical state in which you're placing your mind's eye, your awareness on the body, and you're dissipating these blockages such that the body becomes lighter and lighter and it starts to dissolve. Not physically dissolve, but the awareness of the body starts to dissolve itself. This is achieved through many, 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 many hours of meditation. In this state of feeling light as a feather, that the body is dissolved, that the barrier or the boundary between you and the room or the environment has dissolved, such that you've become the room itself. Now this is a spectrum. This is the ultimate defense against addiction. It is when we feel dense due to our blockages that we become susceptible to addiction. The breath is another modality. When we feel less dense, when the mind is less burdened or weighted down by psychic content, we are much more connected to our breath. Perhaps you can even make the argument that our purpose, our intent, is to breathe. The breath coming from Latin pneuma meaning the soul. When you are connected to your breath is linguistically or an etymology to say that is when you are most connected to your soul. In Buddhism, we call this samadhi. The samadhi state is rare amongst the general population. And that is because the general population does not know how to remove blockages. Some modalities are better at removing blockages than others. is hard to connect to your breath, and therefore it is hard to connect to the soul when you have layer upon layer of blockages. What does it look like when we don't have blockages? When you do not have blockages, miracles are the norm. Financial freedom is the norm. Synchronicity is the norm. Enjoyment within the discourse of relationships is the norm. Finding joy in the little things is the norm. Not needing is the norm. Aligning with healthy food, exercise, running, taking care of the body and the mind is not only the norm, but it is enjoyable. You enjoy doing it. Addiction research has been a disaster for decades. Because we think it's a genetic problem. If genetics is related to addiction, it's because those most prone to addiction are the most sensitive. And the most sensitive people are the most aware. They are more susceptible to the environment. They have to balance that they are creating the world with their mind, but the world is creating their mind as well. So they have to reconcile both contexts. And you reconcile both contexts by not getting attached to what's in front of you, including phenomenon within your environment unfolding in front of you, as well as psychic phenomenon, the thoughts that are bringing you distress about what's unfolding in front of you. So, to observe both from a detached state, that's very difficult to do. It gets easier, but it's difficult. It takes years. This is not an overnight process. If you are entangled with hard addictions, what will become of you in the future if you do the work, and by doing the work, you're removing the blockages, they will be replaced with softer addictions. Typically what happens with individuals who quit smoking, they become food addicts, unfortunately. They are both forms of world fixation, in which you are choosing the lesser of two poisons. But choosing the lesser of two poisons is indeed progress. Having done, and by done I mean studied and written about addiction for the past 6+ years, food is perhaps the most ultimate addiction because you have to eat. And being embedded in modern society, in which we are just barraged by advertisement, including physical signs on the street while we're driving or walking or even looking outside for some of us. That is extremely, extremely difficult. But the more blockages you remove, the easier it becomes. So, the more blockages we remove, the softer our addictions become. Now, in the last video, I made an observation that can be incorrect. It could be incorrect. Because we're not perfect. We are prone to decay after all. That what we are trying to find for ourselves are addictions that we can tolerate. I think it was Sartre who said, man finds the level of hell he is most comfortable with. Hell, in this context, being a metaphor for soft addictions. And that can be something as abstract as negative thinking, including judgment about oneself, one's environment, one's peers, or the stranger at the supermarket, or the stranger down the street. That in itself is an addiction. All addictions begin in the mind, but they are facilitated and fueled by the blockages in the body. I would say that's enough precedence for what I'm about to go into next. So how do we remove the blockages? Now this is a very mystic approach. This is a very wise and sage approach. I would say Rumi is probably the first and foremost leading voice in removing blockages. Because if we think blockages and pain and discomfort, all synonymous, all interchangeable terms, within the body are just painful, then that itself is the cure. In other words, as Rumi said, the cure for the pain is in the pain. Now, as I said previously, placing your mind's eye, your awareness, on your body at all times, which can actually be a very good definition for enlightenment, and feeling sensation arise and dissolve, you will actually feel the blockages physically dissipate, and you will feel instant relief then and there. In my view, the wisest people have said, life is not exactly about enjoying it, but rather it's about removing the blockages. It's not about your identity, it's not about what you do, it's not about who you know, it's not about who you're involved or entangled with. It's about removing the blockages. I don't want to say that is the view of viewing the world, but it's a very important system to carry into your day-to-day. To remove the blockages, once you place your awareness on your body, specifically the lower parts of the body. The lower parts of the body are mostly responsible for being propelled into the addiction or the cycle of addiction. Other parts of the body too, such as headaches, such as pains in the throat and the mouth. But primarily, they begin from here and lower. Once you place your awareness on the lower part of your body, you also have to begin to relax. So this is a twofold process. I'm doing this as I speak. I'm not just saying these words, but I can actually feel the energy of my blockages move. It's a very physical process for me. If you look at the esoteric definition of medicine, the esoteric definition of medicine is to move energy. So by focusing on your blockages, you are moving energy. This process, this dynamic in itself is medicine. Linguistically speaking. And phenomenologically speaking as well. There is an onion inside of you. Each layer is a blockage. Some of your onions are bigger than others. Some of us don't know how many layers of the onion we are holding on inside of ourselves. I mentioned a number of modalities to remove these blockages. This is just my perspective. This is just my view. But in my experience, the best way to remove these blockages has been Vipassana meditation. Vipassana meaning insight. To go deeper into that definition, I would argue we are going into the inside of our body. Friedrich Nietzsche once mentioned, there is more wisdom in the body than in our deepest philosophy. So by removing the blockages in our body, we are becoming aligned, embodied with truth, such that the self becomes inherent. The self becomes knowing, and I mean really knowing. In other words, the truth becomes self-evident in every sense of the word. Now, I was once granted a period of time where I was able to meditate extensively. Time would slow down. I was able to see space between everything. Any uncomfortable event that unfolded in front of me, I would be able to handle it. I am going through a phase in my life where it seems to me that I'm dealing with the most deep blockages, and they have been incessant for 4 years. Just non-stop removing of the layers. There is not a day that goes by where I do not remove a layer of blockages. I've gotten so good at removing blockages that my body just does it on its own sometimes. This is a very deep technique that creates, or rather, is set with the greatest of intention. You have to really want this. Vipassana is an extremely powerful tool in which the world could greatly benefit from. Now more than ever, it is the tool that we are looking for, given that addiction, disease, mental health issues are the most problematic they've ever been. How do you become dedicated to removing the blockages now that you know how to remove the blockages? And I will say a little bit more about this. investment is the best thing you can do. I would suggest buying an extremely comfortable meditation cushion. One of organic material. Now that's a peculiar thing to say, but things are made, or products are made with so much plastic these days. The plastic breaks off and goes into the environment and goes into your body, and you're unconsciously creating more harm to yourself and the environment, which actually just grips you into the throes of addiction even more. And by purchasing organic material or organic gear, that increases the investment. And the greater the investment, the more you're going to feel obliged to practice. So buy an extremely comfortable organic meditation cushion. I know that's very weird advice. I'm aware of that. But once you're not creating harm and you're comfortable, meaning comfortable to sit for extended periods of time such that your joints are well facilitated, you are able to sit longer. The longer you are able to sit, the deeper you are able to go into the work. The deeper you are able to go into the work, the more you can maximize removing blockages. The more blockages you can remove within your meditation session, the more miracles you are able to create, the more abundance you are able to attract, the more synchronicities you are able to attract, the more joy you are able to attract, the more defense you are able to create for yourself from negative forces in all contexts. Now, I'm not sponsored in any way, but the best market to buy an organic, comfortable meditation cushion, which can range from anywhere from $120 to maybe $250, is Etsy. Support local business, support mom and pop shops, support people who are dedicated to creating materials and products that are not only conducive to the environment, but conducive to your health. Because when you care about your health, this informs your day-to-day decision making. When your day-to-day decision making is well-intended, you are mitigating the risk of addiction. You are emancipating from addictive behaviors. This is what it takes. This is what the work looks like. If you are flexible and able to sit on the floor in half or full lotus style, then you don't need a meditation cushion. But a lot of people who are addicted are disconnected from their body. And when you are disconnected from your body, the joints are really tight. Hence my recommendation. When you go about removing these blockages from the body, wisdom begins to permeate, begins to come to the surface, and you will find your body acting accordingly on its own in a flow state, getting the right things done, aligning with higher and higher choices, in which you are able to further, yet gradually, distance yourself from the suffering. The journey can get harder, but you will be stronger to face those challenges. One last thing I would like to say is when you feel these blockages, they're going to feel heavy, they're going to feel tight, they're going to feel temperatured, either hot or cold. They're going to feel nauseating. They're going to feel pulsating. Some might even feel tickly or tingling. Sit with them. And even itchy. Itchy is a sensation as well. But the sensations or the blockages that create addictive patterns are usually ones that are heavy, pulsating, nauseating. And very often these blockages, these sensations are accompanied with memories and limiting beliefs. So you're observing all three dimensions at once. First, the sensation, the memory, and the limiting belief. Once you let go of the sensation while psychically acknowledging the limiting belief and the memory, they will dissipate and on to the next layer. And as soon as you relax, the sensations are going to exacerbate. They're going to become more pronounced. This is a good thing. And as they become more pronounced, the mind chatter will increase. These are all signs, indications, parameters that you are rightly doing